Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode 109. And today we have a great episode prepared for you guys. We have John Defreitas, one of the sales representatives at Sutton Group Summit Realty, joining us today. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me both on. Looking forward to it.
It's
Yeah,
great to
no,
have
this
you
is going to
on,
be
John.
great.
We want to hear your whole story. Starting when you were born, were you immediately part of Sutton Summit, or did something happen between birth and something later on in life before you joined?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe one of my parents had some Sutton Summit in their blood, so that that could have been a possibility. Uh, no, that wasn't necessarily the case, David. So a little bit about me. I'm in my late 40s. Had a transition in my career to get into real estate. But before all that, I was born, raised in Toronto. So I know the city really well. Married to my wife, Mary, for 22 years. I have a couple of fantastic kids, Dylan and Emily. They're both off to university and college. And, I had a long running career in retail as an executive where I worked at Walmart for 20 plus years. I studied architecture in my schooling, and that got me to where I was building and developing Walmart store layouts for the entire country. And I learned a ton with my time at Walmart, and that built a foundation for me to transition to real estate, which is where I am today. So.
So, how old were you when you decided to make the career change?
So yeah, I was in my mid late 40s already. So I'd been at Walmart for, 25 years. I had learned a ton, but I realized like I was growing very tired of like the corporate grind. And just the political landscape was, I was just a little tired of it and I wanted to do something more for myself. So it was in 2020 when there were some changes taking place at Walmart, and there was an opportunity for me to move on, and that's exactly what I did. And I had been thinking about getting into real estate years before that, though. So I wasn't necessarily worried about leaving Walmart because it was like, okay, I kind of felt like I knew where my next transition stuff would be.
John, I had no idea you studied architecture in school.
Yeah,
You and I know each other really well. We have some great history together, but
yeah.
it's always fascinating from a broker owner point of view, what you learn about, the people you work with, your colleagues, your partners. And it fascinates me because there's so much experience that we can tap into
Mm-hmm.
and lean on and collectively work together to further each other's interests. It's really fascinating. So I'm so glad you shared your story, and it's really great to know that you have that background.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I love architecture. I took it for a couple years, but then I was offered an opportunity to get into a full-time job. At the time, I was still in school. I was working part-time, making, $9 an hour. I had an opportunity to get a full-time job in a corporate world for like $16 an hour. Like I took it. So from that perspective, I wish I had completed my architectural studies. I never did, but the passion for architecture design never went away, which was one of the fundamental bits I think that I loved that allowed me to realize that real estate would be a good transition point for me because two things that I really loved was space and how people use space and the design of space, which is, I mean, it works with real estate and where people live, and then working with people. I loved working with people as well. Those two things. And then also, like, when I did make the move to real estate, it was like just at the end of the pandemic. And the opportunity that I had in front of me when, my time with Walmart ended was at the peak of the pandemic. I had just spent like 4 weeks at home by myself with my family when, we don't want to think about that period. time, it really sucked. But at that time, I realized, I haven't left the house in 4 weeks. The house, your home where you live, is so much more than just a roof over your head. It's everything to you. And I realized it is everything. And at that point, I felt like it's more than just, working with people and enjoying design. It's more about like the house is very important. Where people shelter is so important to them. So that affinity I had, or that realization, is really what pushed me into wanting to become a realtor.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at real estate too. Like, I know David might disagree. Like, he looks at every house, every home. It's an investment. He's always looking at this. It's an investment. I look at you got to live somewhere, and that's your home. When you decide to sell it or move or change it, turns out it was always a good investment, anyways. Right. But and some look at it as an event because they plan to move somewhere, live somewhere for a couple of years, and then use that as a stepping stone to build some equity and move to the next one. And I'm all in favor of that too. But the other part of it, I think, as a realtor, you have to focus on is that's where their life is. That's where they're living. They got to be comfortable in that kitchen. They spend 80% of the time in that kitchen, and then their family is going to be important to them. And if they have a backyard, that's important. Whatever their lifestyle is, that's what the realtor really has to help them find. Like, that's what their home's going to be. You got to turn the house into a home, right? The investment will happen and go, but they got to live there.
Exactly. It's where Thanksgiving and Christmas takes place. It's very important to people. Absolutely. And the emotional piece is what connected with me and pushed me to decide that's exactly where I want it to be. But David, you're right. Like, from an investment perspective, it's a no-brainer. Hey, 90% of millionaires are millionaires because of real estate. So that's absolutely a given.
Yeah.
And Canadians agree with you, John. And we've seen that. We've seen that spoken so loud and clear through COVID. And even through the high interest rates that we're experiencing right now, home prices are not dropping as rapidly as a lot of people predicted they would. Now, a lot of people said, hey, if interest rates get to this point, we're going to see double-digit decline in real estate prices, and we're just not seeing that across the board. We're seeing real estate prices hold, and I think it's that testament, John, that you spoke about, that Canadians believe in real estate not only as their investment, but they value the connection they have with their homes, and I think that dream of home ownership is so loud and prevalent in Canada. I wanted to get into a conversation because I know there's a lot of professionals listening, a lot of people tuning in that are maybe thinking about getting their license and transitioning from whatever career they're in right now, and kind of obtaining or crossing that path and getting into real estate. What advice would you have for anybody that's thinking about getting their real estate license?
Well, so just to be transparent, I've been a realtor for just over 2 years. So it hasn't been a long time, but the benefit I have is that my experiences are very recent and true. So I can definitely articulate that. So what I would say is, it's definitely be prepared for a challenge in the first year for sure. Not everybody will be faced with that. I mean, depending on what your past experiences are or who your connections are, you might have a better transition. But be prepared for it to be a tough first year. And it was for me. In my first year, I didn't have a single transaction. And, part of the reason for that is because, I was known as, John, the executive guy who worked for a big retail chain. I wasn't known as John, the real estate agent. So I needed to get my name out there first and foremost. So one of the first things I did was I created a video and I posted it just saying, it's time for a change. And that video had a lot of views from my inner circle and tons of comments. And it was just something different that I wanted to do to get my name out there, because I've known a lot of people that had transitioned from even Walmart to real estate. And they just put out a post on LinkedIn. It was very nice, but it just got lost in the weeds, and I didn't want to do that. So I started with video right away. So my advice would be, first and foremost, make sure that people know that you're no longer doing what you did and you're in real estate. And video is absolutely the best way to do that. In social media environment we're in now, video is absolutely everything. They were talking about this 5 years ago, and we're 100%. If you don't do video, you don't do social media. So definitely focus on getting your name out there first and foremost.
So are you
Don't
sending
get
that to
discouraged.
your, sorry, John, when you're sending that out, that first one,
yeah,
you're basically farming it to every contact that you have. Like
that's right.
whoever's in you haven't sold anybody a piece of real estate, you haven't talked to anybody about real estate, but it's whatever your connections are, your family, all the relatives, all your friends, all your business associates, whatever you've got, right? That's the first place that you're looking to, but you're doing it through video and sending out the link on an email or
yeah, through video. So I posted it onto LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever I had social media accounts. And the whole bit for me was I just needed to be myself and just tell everyone, hey, I've made a change. This is what I do now. I'm not, experienced, but I have a passion for it. I think my background is going to lend me to be a great real estate agent. And I want to keep that connection that I had in my past life with all of you going forward in my future professional career. And it was as simple as that. Keeping it very authentic, just being myself. And I would say like 80% of the comments I got was, John, that was, you came across just as I know you are. That's the person I know. And people gravitate to that. So that was my focus on that first video for sure, to get my name out there and just to be authentically who I am.
well, another really important decision you had to make at that time, like the biggest decision was I'm going to go into real estate and get my license. But the second big decision is, where am I going to park that license? Which brokerage do I want to partner with to support me because I want success and I need them. I need a proper brokerage that's going to back me where I'm comfortable. And so it's easier for me to ask this question than David to ask this question. But so how did you choose going to Sutton Summit?
Yeah, well, David bribed me to come over. No, I'm just joking.
Cash talks.
Yeah, that would be nice.
He got him a discount at
yeah.
Walmart, probably. That's all you would have needed to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No. So there was definitely a thought process behind it for me. For me, the first thing I thought was proximity. It definitely had to be convenient. I mean, because if a brokerage wasn't convenient, I wasn't going to leverage what a brokerage was there to be, which was, there to help service its realtors to ultimately provide the best customer service to their clients possible. And so I wanted to be there to leverage the service and the support. So it had to be like a 10, 15-minute drive. I didn't want to be stuck in traffic. So how close is it for sure was important. Name recognition was also important to me. So I wanted people to see it and say, oh yeah, well, I trust that brand. It's, one of the big three. There's a lot of great specialty brokerages, I'm sure, out there, but I really wanted it to be associated with one of the big three. The fact that it's a Canadian one is just a bonus. So that's great. But the most important thing for me, and I had interviewed with maybe like half a dozen brokerages, was, the reputation of the brokerage. It was about, what was the environment like? What did, how many realtors worked for the brokerage? Were they experienced realtors? And, the more I learned and the more I interviewed with different brokerages, not everyone had a real good, I guess, explanation for what they stood for or kind of what their culture was. But it was very clear to me what the culture was, for Sutton Summit. It was a culture of team environment, of support. And I got that right away in my first few interviews and my first couple of times there. And, again, David didn't pay me to say this, but, knowing David ahead of time, he was my realtor, and we became friends, mine and Mary's, before I even made the decision to become a real estate agent. So I also had a trust factor with David, knowing his character and knowing that he was leading this team gave me confidence that, that was going to be a leadership trickle down effect and people would exude that same sort of, culture and character. So that was definitely important to me. Those were the reasons
I decided to big check to John. Big
Thank
time.
you.
Well, John, I certainly appreciate, you saying that. And, I'm going to ask you this question, but how has your experience been with Sutton Summit, from the initial interview to
Mm,
actually, 2 years later and working at the brokerage for 2 years? And, please be honest, because there's a big problem in our industry where during the recruiting phase, or I'm going to call it during the courting phase, you are
mm,
promised so much as a realtor. You're
yeah,
basically promised the moon, the stars, and the sky. And I see
yeah,
realtors falling for this all the time.
mm,
They come to me and they're like, David, this is what they promised me. And I said, listen, be very careful. You're a business owner.
yeah,
It's so easy to, have preconceived notions at the beginning, but then, you know, 2 years later, you really find out the true colors of the environment that you're a part of. So, how have those expectations kind of lived up in the 2 years that you've been with us?
yeah. So I can tell you very honestly, because, and I'll start by and preface by saying, I worked for Walmart for many, many years. One of the most important aspects of Walmart is its culture and its people. That is a driving factor. So I had that 25-year experience of, team environment. So my expectation based on, what I learned was that team aspect. So coming into it, I wasn't disappointed. I definitely felt from the very first interview with Sabia, and getting to meet the front end team, the back end team, and all the support people in the brokerage, that what they were saying about, having the tools in place and the resources and support being available was absolutely true. And I realized this more from talking to, other realtors that I was negotiating deals with and just becoming colleagues with, than just my experiences, because their stories gave me an actual something to measure what I was experiencing against. And they have some, like, it's unbelievable. There's brokerages out there that they have realtors that don't even know the first name of their broker of record. And are you for real? Like, I can call Sabia like almost any time of day. She's never not answered my call. So being accessible and having really knowledgeable people in the brokerage, the training that's been provided, we do like weekly, if not 2 times a week, training courses sometimes. All those things to me lived up to what I expected. And no brokerage is perfect. Everyone's going to have some issues with whatever brokerage they join. And to your point, I mean, and I get like 3 calls a week to join a new brokerage, especially being on social media so much. Your name gets out there and people want you. But yeah, so my expectations and what I've seen to date, I haven't been disappointed. Definitely
It's awesome, John. And what advice would you give to new agents?
So because I had such a difficult first year, I would say you have to stay positive and focused. One of the biggest challenges I had was building a routine, right? Like, what's your routine look like? When you work in a corporate world, it's pretty easy. You don't have a choice. You're going to get up, brush your teeth, have breakfast, get in a car, go to your first meeting. Everything was laid out for you. But in real estate, when you're your own business entrepreneur, it's not that case. So building a routine is super, super important, but staying focused, don't give up. One of the things that I would also suggest, especially as a new realtor, is leverage seasoned realtors around you. So another great thing about Sutton Summit, another reason I joined, is because there's also a lot of seasoned realtors that have been there for so many years. So what I did is I partnered up with, a few seasoned realtors who mentored me, coached me through some challenging questions that I had. I partnered with some of them for open houses, so I learned a ton from them and got exposure. I partnered with some of them on business deals. So leverage people around you in the business that have been there longer, befriend them, learn as much as you can from them. That is incredibly, incredibly important. And I guess a couple other things, definitely try and narrow your focus if you can as a new realtor. It's very easy to cast a wide net. And I'm guilty of still doing that because you want to potentially get every lead that's out there. but try and narrow your focus to a niche customer, or at least as close as you possibly can. You know, is it a first-time buyer? Is it renters who will eventually become buyers? Is it empty nesters? Is it working with mortgage brokers and leveraging and partnering that way? Narrowing your focus will allow you to speak a lot louder to a much smaller audience, but they're likely going to be wanting to hear what you say rather than a much broader audience that you might not really get the same response from. And I would say I also absolutely focus on your database. That would be probably the last piece. Work it every single day if you can. Your CRM is your best friend, but you have to feed it. So go out there and get as much data as you can. Something as simple as door knocking. I'll be upfront. Door knocking is not something I love to do. I've done it. It's going to be a big part of one of my key lead generation sources now, because I realize door knocking is coming back. It's, you know how things, they all revolve, and social media is everything, but you know, I feel like there's this period where simple door knocking is going to start coming back. And it's a funny thing. I've started door knocking in my neighborhood, and in the last month, I've had like 3 realtors door knock me, and I hadn't had a realtor door knock me for 3 years. So door knocking is coming back. So be present in your neighborhood, gather data as much as you can. Something as simple as knocking on someone's door. If they don't answer, just make a note. Is this house dilapidated house? Is it well maintained? That might give you an idea. Is it an older family? Is it a new family? The next time you door knock, they might be somebody that answers. They might give you a name. All those data points can help you eventually have conversations and lead you to potential deals. So those are probably the things that I would advise the most.
Well, this is fabulous, John. I love listening to you. What I'm amazed when I listen to your answers to these questions, I would expect these answers from someone who's been doing this for 20 years. Like, forget your 25 years at Walmart. You sound like you've been doing real estate for 25 years, and you're the guy that should be mentoring the young new agents, telling them how to do it. And you're only 1 year away from having a shutout year when you did nothing. So it's amazing. It's remarkable. And that anybody that watches this is going to be really, or listens to this, can be really encouraged by hearing what you say. So we want to continue with you, John. We're going to have you back on another segment because we really want to tap into you as a video marketing guru in your own career, and how you've leveraged that and how important that is. And I think we want to just pick your brains a little bit about that, right, David?
Absolutely, John. In your second year, you earned the prestigious Platinum Award. So congratulations. I can't wait to see what you accomplish in the future. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had a chance, please check out John's YouTube, LinkedIn, and TikTok account, which we were put in the comments down below. Connect with John. He's a great resource and a really hardworking realtor. John, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We'll have you back next episodes where we're going to dive deeper into video marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a blast. A lot of fun being on the David and David.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.